Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to Career Lab Wednesday. I am your host, George Miller. I am here almost every Wednesday from noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. And if you've joined in before, you know that I take all questions career related. So anything from some technical things to relationship things. So how you can develop more rapport with your boss, your team, etc. We're going to be diving into a lot more of that today. But I want to say for you as you're joining in that you can engage in a few ways. Now, I love it when you jump in here directly on Zoom and I can talk with you or you can type into the chat. If you can't do that, that's totally fine. You can type your questions into the comment section and I will do my best to get to those questions. You can type your questions into the comment section on YouTube or on LinkedIn, and my assistant will pass those off to me, and I will do my best to engage with you that way. So there's a few things that I like to do as I'm getting started here is to set the context for everybody joining in, and is we look at your career as a pathway for you to reach your potential. And when I do that, when I look at what I do for work, which is where most of us spend a significant part of our time, when I look at where I'm spending my work time and the impact that has on me as a person, and the impact that I can have in that environment, and what I'm learning about myself, how I'm developing in this work environment, with that context, oftentimes a lot of the small questions that I have day to day get more clarity. I get more clarity about those questions I have. So I like to set the context of that my career is a pathway for me to reach my potential. Is this helping me become who I can become? And I was just working with somebody who mentioned that for them, they are, as part of their career, they've had several jobs, and to the point now where they are, it's a normal thing for them to move once or twice a year to a working with a different company, and how in the past it was thought that you get a stable job, you work with that company for your entire life. And so these kinds of things can change. About, you could, if you were in a one company and it was a spot where you were able to continue learning and growing and developing yourself, and if you were doing that in that company, then you would be, it would be fine. You could be happy. It would be like, wow, how lucky am I that I get to keep developing these relationships here? How fantastic. But more and more these days, it's often going to mean that I am moving to other companies, or that the company that I've been with is gone now and I have to do my own thing, move to another company, or start my own business. So this can look different for every single person, but the thing that I like to keep in mind is what I'm doing right now helping me become who I can become? And that impacts so many things. It impacts if I'm interviewing, then I'm assessing the different companies and I'm coming in with more critical thinking instead of just trying to look good and trying to sell myself to them. I'm able to have the thoughts of, oh, is this a place that's really going to help me become who I want to be? What are the challenges that are happening here? So as we're getting started today, I wanted to share that perspective about your career I think it's a very helpful way to approach things. It's certainly what I do when I look at, okay, what's the next meaningful risk I'm going to take in my career? I've been seeing now, okay, public speaking is more a part of that. Oh, okay, part of why I jump on these every Wednesday is because I'm practicing. This is in line with how I see myself developing me and impacting the world the way that I want to. So that's some of the context there. I see as people are joining in here, I want to say again that you are welcome at any time to come off mute and ask a question. And if you don't want to come off mute, you can also type into the chat or into the comment section and ask your question there. Any question career related is on the table. You can ask about resumes, interviews, team management, relationship with boss, client relationships, anything that is on your heart, any challenge that you're up against at work, you are welcome to ask. And I'm going to be diving in a little more about delegation, about how to empower teams, how to empower people that you're working with. This is a common thing that I work with people on. So I'll be sharing about that, but please know you are welcome to type anything into the chat or come off mute and ask a question. It's fine for you to engage that way. In fact, your questions help fuel the conversation. Your questions that you ask, other people listening in have those same questions or something similar to it. And so I really appreciate your questions because they help me, they help give direction to this hour that I'm on here with you. So again, feel free to ask any questions at any point in time as I'm starting to share about emotional intelligence and leadership and empowering your teams. So a common thing that people share about from the standpoint of I'm being micromanaged, like my boss or new supervisor or something, they don't trust that I know how to do stuff. And so they come in and they're trying to do things for me. And then I end up feeling kind of hurt and maybe insulted, like, hey, well, what, this is my job. And here you are kind of doing this in a way that has me feeling upset and like, what's the point of me being here? So this is an incredibly common thing. Then from the other side, when somebody's coming into a new position and they are, and they're a manager now or they're supervising, and they have all this anxiety and they don't fully understand their job yet. And so they just know that they want to get things done and they're so used to doing it themselves. And so they will jump in and micromanage. And this is something that I think anybody listening in can probably relate to on some level. So I want to break it down, or what's happening inside for the person who is now supervising, and also for the person who is now reporting to somebody, and break this down to the emotions that are happening. Because as I get more aware of what's happening inside my body, what the feelings are that I'm having, the better I am at trying new things, the better I'm able to get more data about what's actually happening. Because if I am now supervising and I've got concerns about that and I'm uncomfortable with my new leadership position, I am feeling afraid. I am feeling anxious. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Of course I would be feeling anxious. I'm doing something I haven't done before. But if I am refusing to feel that anxiety, then I am way more likely to jump in and start fixing things that are really not my job to be fixing. Because I have that anxiety and I don't want to feel it, so I just revert to what I've done in the past as a way to avoid that discomfort. And so the key in this is to allow myself to feel uncomfortable. There's nothing wrong with anxiety. Anxiety is actually a gift. Anxiety, if we didn't have anxiety, we would have been eaten a long time ago by animals bigger than we are. Our anxiety is a way that we have survived. And so I can learn to be with that anxiety in new ways that will then help me delegate and help me give up control in appropriate ways. So think about that for yourself in a way when you, or if you're now supervising and you're feeling that anxiety and you're watching somebody do something and it's like, oh no, that's not how you do it. Well, sometimes you're going to have to assess and say, you know, I think that's a mistake that they can make that I can let go of. And they'll figure out that it's a mistake and they understand that the expectation is this, and it's going to be up to them to get to my expectation, and they're going to figure out how to do it. So I'm letting go of me having to fix things right away. Now, if it's, you have to pay attention to your anxieties, to your fears, because if it's for a project and you really can't have a mistake like that, then you will step in and you'll say, before submitting that, there are things you're going to want to address in that. And you're using your authority in an appropriate way there. So even there, in just that small example, you're going to want to address some things in that before you submit that. That's still putting the anxiety appropriately on them to say, hey, there's more. You need to figure it out. I expect you to figure it out. I expect that you're capable. Instead of me jumping in right in that moment and saying, oh no, you need to do this, this, and this. And I growl because I still do this. I do this often where I'm working with somebody and I jump in and I start fixing things, and I just don't want to be with my discomfort of of me not being in control. And so just within the past week, I've done this several times where I have jumped in and started working on something that I didn't really need to do. And so what I want all of you to do if you're in this situation is just start noticing. Start noticing times where you are jumping in and fixing things that you don't really need to fix. And notice the anxiety that you have. Notice that discomfort. By simply noticing the discomfort, you're already starting to win. You're already starting to learn a new behavior. So that new behavior of letting other people handle stuff, setting that expectation out there, that for most of us is a new behavior, and it will require feeling discomfort. So just that little step, and you're not going to get it right every time, but being aware of this, then you will start to assess and look at previous encounters that you had throughout your day and say, you know what? I stepped in when I didn't need to. You know what? I think I kind of disempowered somebody on my team. Okay. Well, cool that I'm noticing that. Geez, wow, as I think about it, I've probably been doing that a lot and I wasn't even aware of it. Okay, well, good. The win is that I'm noticing this now and I'm uncomfortable with noticing it, and that's okay. And now that I'm paying attention to ways that I have been disempowering, now I can start to look forward to whatever meetings I'm having this afternoon or tomorrow or next week and say, okay, I'm going to hold back a little more in some of these meetings. I'm gonna stay with my discomfort, just notice, oh, I want to jump in and fix something there. And instead of doing it, I'm going to withhold a bit. And you can start to plan for how to do new behaviors. So that's how I'm setting us up so far for if you are in management or supervising, is how do you let go of things appropriately? So for those of you who are joining in, this is Career Lab Wednesday. I'm your host, George Miller. I'm here pretty much every Wednesday, and I take questions about your career, whatever is on your heart, a challenge that you're up against. And there's a few ways you can share your questions. You can type them into the comment section, or you can jump in here on Zoom and come off mute if you want and talk, or you can type your questions into the chat. And so I invite any questions, anything that I'm talking about, if it sparks an idea or sparks a challenge that you have, it doesn't have to be exactly on this topic. Believe me, I am good at being ADHD and jumping all over the place to different things and bringing them together. My expertise is in emotional intelligence and leadership. So that's the umbrella which I will tend to bring things back under, but that's my job, not yours. Your job is simply to be questioning things and to be wanting more for yourself in your career and to share your questions here. And I'll use your questions to engage in the material as we're talking about emotional intelligence and leadership. And I'm seeing one coming in here. Okay, empowering teams through emotional intelligence fosters collaboration and enhances overall performance. It's all about understanding and connecting with individuals effectively. Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. Empowering teams through emotional intelligence fosters collaboration. So there's a whole lot in there that we can digest. Thank you for that input. Absolutely. Welcome on everybody who's just joining in. You are welcome to come off mute and ask questions, or you can type questions into the chat or into the comment section. So I'll address this statement here about emotional intelligence and fostering collaboration. There's a lot of research on this. Back in 1999, there was a Harvard Business Review article by Daniel Goleman about emotional intelligence. And since that time, I don't know if this is up to date, but if it's not the #1 article asked for by people in the C-suite, it's up there. So people in leadership positions refer back to this article many, many, many times. Because as you develop as a leader, the most important thing is your emotional intelligence, your ability to be with your feelings while being increasingly with other people's feelings. So again, back to this example of being a manager and learning to not micromanage. If I look at that and say, oh, if I'm unwilling to be with my fear and my discomfort, if I'm unwilling to acknowledge that I have anxiety about managing, what I tend to do then is to jump in inappropriately and fix things because I don't want to be with that anxiety. I revert to old behaviors that aren't really serving me. So if I can learn to be more present in the here and now with my core feelings, and one of those core feelings is fear or anxiety, now I'm more present in this moment. It allows me to see more of what's going on and to say, all right, I don't have to jump in and fix something. That doesn't make sense right now. I'm actually going to ask some questions to the person who's reporting to me that's going to help them develop. Great. So that's just one little example of how, as I develop as a leader, that emotional intelligence is the most important thing. It's not how smart I am. It's not how good looking I am. It's not even about my experience. The number of times that somebody reaches out to me because there's big changes happening in their company, they've been doing things a certain way for a long time, and now there's new technology, and they're like, ah, like, I know how this system works, and people are not paying attention to me, and they're not understanding while we're implementing a new technology, like just how challenging this is and that kind of thing. So when somebody reaches out to me about that, one of the core things that they end up needing to work on is their anxiety and how hurt they feel and how scared they feel that there's this new stuff coming in. And if they don't acknowledge that, if they don't acknowledge how upsetting it is that the world's always changing, they end up pushing that onto other people around them. And it's unconscious. It's an unconscious thing. This is like that story of, like, the grouchy old person at the job that doesn't want to admit that things are changing. And so what is required of that person is to be with the upset that, yep, this is a challenge. New things are happening and I don't like it. And that's fine. You don't have to like it. But if you can be with it and acknowledge the upset, once I acknowledge the upset, then I can be open to learning new things. I can be open to new behaviors. But if I'm just pretending that I'm not upset, doesn't work. It's like everybody around me could be looking at me and be like, yeah, dude's upset. But if I'm unwilling to be with that discomfort, then I don't get to learn and grow. And so this is a way that emotional intelligence is so important for every level of leadership, every level of advancement. And as leaders, as you increase your effectiveness, as you increase the amount of people that you're interfacing with, you have to be that much more emotionally intelligent. Because I now have to be aware of this type of person. I have to be aware of these levels of interactions happening here. I have to understand that people have authority issues and are starting to take shots at me, unconscious shots at me, and what to do with that. Because part of me just wants to immediately squash them. Well, that doesn't really work in most scenarios, because then everybody kind of resents me for the squashing that just happened. And I might not even be conscious of this kind of thing. So I need to be more in touch with the challenges and the pains that happen with development if I'm going to be effective at it. And to be able to say to somebody when they're taking some shots at me because they've got some authority issues, of like, wow, I feel scared and hurt that you're saying those kinds of things to me. You might not use scared or hurt, depending on the work environment you're in. You might say, I'm concerned about how I think you see me. And you can fine tune how you interact with people that are reporting to you. So I hope this is helpful. I'm getting some more questions coming in. I just wanted to underline what somebody had shared, that yes, empowering teams through emotional intelligence is so important. It's what fosters collaboration and enhances overall performance. It's absolutely spot on. There's a lot of research at this point that shows that, because you can be as smart as you could be, but if you don't know how to communicate what your insights are to somebody else, doesn't matter. Then you're alone. I think about that movie Oppenheimer, and one of the things I took away from it, obviously the guy was brilliant, but there was other people who were better at him in a lot of arenas like math, And part of what he was so good at, he was emotionally intelligent and able to bring people together. So this is, yes, being able to be in touch with my emotions will then allow me to better engage the people on my team. I've got a question here about goal is to progress incrementally in the senior software engineering role to a staff engineer and overall become a better engineer who adds value to the team and any organization in general. I feel that I have become stagnant in terms of overall professional growth and do not have a well-defined short-term or long-term goals. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to address this. And for those of you who are just joining in, this is Career Lab Wednesday. I'm George Miller. I'm here almost every Wednesday, noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. I take your questions about your career. I run it through the filter of emotional intelligence and leadership development and do my best to help you on your journey. So you want to be developing in your role as an engineer in software engineering, and you think you're stagnant. So if you can type in and give me some more guidance on this, please do. If you are stagnant, you want to look at what are the relationships for you to develop? What's your relationship like with your manager or your boss? Are you meeting their expectations? Are you just going into work and you've got the set things that you know how to do and you just go in and do that? Okay, if that's kind of the spot where you're at, then we can look at, okay, what are the things you can start to tweak that are going to put you in a position where you're going to get more attention and get more development. I'm gonna assume, until you give me more information, that you're a part of at least weekly meetings. So let's just say once a week, you've got your tasks that you know how to do, you do those well, and you get your stuff in on time, all of that. So, because if you're not doing that, that's the first thing you address. You make sure you're doing your job really well. Then when you're in meetings, one of the first things you can do is start asking questions. This is a really big one. In fact, there's somebody I'm thinking of in particular, a client who found that in a meeting that they had thoughts about how things should go. And they're like, I don't think this is right. I think we should go this way, but I don't think I have enough seniority here. And I don't think that me just saying what I think is really going to work in this environment. So we broke it down a little more and found out that he was able to ask questions instead of just make statements. He could start asking questions to help him understand more and get more clarity about the processes. And so that was just step number one. In the weekly meeting, he started raising his hand and saying, help me understand this, this, and this. And wouldn't you know it, after just a month of doing that, he started to notice he was more confident and that more people started to look to him for input to things. And he started noticing, oh, other people have questions too that they haven't been asking. And now other people are starting to ask questions. And these meetings aren't just this rote thing that everybody's looking forward to having it. These meetings are actually a spot now that people are looking forward to because they're understanding that it's going to help them do their job better. So just this simple thing of asking more questions in the meeting. And now we're going to break this down even further. So my client is an introvert, sees themselves as an introvert. And so just speaking up in a meeting is not how they saw themselves. So they had to face their fear, be with the fear, instead of avoiding it and just like shutting up through the meeting and be like, oh God, get this over, get this over, get this over, get this over. They said, okay, I'm going to be with this anxiety and I'm going to actually use the anxiety to speak towards something that matters to me. I am like, oh my gosh, are people going to judge me that I'm asking a question about this thing? And are they going to think I look stupid? So I'm going to face that fear and I'm going to use this anxiety to ask a question about this specific thing. And then, whoa, lo and behold, now somebody is responding. The manager actually seems excited that I asked this question. Oh my gosh, these beliefs that I've had about myself and me being not smart enough or whatever, that I'm annoying. Oh my gosh, that's not even true. In fact, they're grateful that I spoke up. And whoa, so I was with my anxiety. I used that anxiety with a direction towards something. I addressed something, and now positive things are happening. All that, just like that, in a few seconds happened. And then he asks another question. And just like that, whoa, my anxiety is a gift. This is something that I can actually use. It can give me focus on addressing things that need to be addressed. Okay, cool. And over time, he became increasingly comfortable with his anxiety. Then he's going into internal interviews in ways that he hadn't before. He's putting his hat in the ring for leadership opportunities. And it all started with him being more present in his fear. So now, as you're saying that, your goal is to progress incrementally to the senior software engineering role. And you've been thinking that you're stagnant. So you want to look for the time with other people where you can use your anxiety to help you develop. That's going to be more satisfying. Taking meaningful risks is part of life. And if I don't do anything and I just sit back and I'm just hoping that something will change, nothing's going to change. So I have to use that fear and say, oh, I'm going to engage with it in a way that actually is exciting and actually brings joy, instead of just freezing in the fear and being unsatisfied. Okay, so I'm seeing some more. That's a good point. So you do tend to focus mostly on the technical side of things, but I can see how building stronger relationships could help with growth. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, you want to build those relationships. Okay, when you say asking questions in meetings, do you mean about the project or about more of the business side of things? I mean both. I mean asking more questions. Start with what's most comfortable for you. So this is another key thing in development. As we are learning and growing in our lives, we want to identify meaningful risks. So oftentimes, most people I work with, we have a tendency, when we're picturing what we want, when we're visioning how we want to be at work or in meetings, we pick goals that are like way out there and absolutely terrifying. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing to be able to see, Mount Everest or Denali, that peak in the future that we want to go to. We want to move towards that. That's cool. But we also have to understand that, there's a lot of little steps to get there. And if I'm just going to make a run for it, usually what happens is I'll fail, and then I'll say to myself, see, that's why you don't take risks. That's why you don't do that kind of thing. See, you should just sit back and just keep going how you are. That is a common thing for human beings. And so to recognize that that's part of our unconscious strategy to remain stuck or to remain safe, and just to acknowledge, oh yeah, I kind of screw myself over sometimes because I don't really strategize well on taking meaningful risks. Okay, well, now that I'm kind of aware of that unconscious pattern, now I can look at meaningful risks more objectively. And I can say, okay, Mount Denali up there, I want to get to the top of that. And in order for me to do that, I first need to learn how to hike. I first need to learn about packing a bag, how to pack a bag appropriately. Okay, cool. I'm going to do that small step now. That's something I can do. That can take me 1 hour. So, yes, with these things in speaking up in meetings and asking questions, you can look at the questions that are the easiest for you to ask. Whatever is the least risky things. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if let's say that you see something in your company and you're like, man, that's a problem. Like this I feel like this might be a big issue, but there's also a lot of resistance to looking at this issue, then you might not start asking questions about that thing. Start with things that people are going to be more comfortable with so that you're developing your skill of asking meaningful questions in a meeting. Okay, I hope this is making sense. So you want to look for the zone of proximal development is right outside your comfort zone. So again, not super in the distance, not the big scary goal that you really want, that you want to be moving towards, but just something a little different, just a little uncomfortable. This is an exercise I haven't thought about in a while. So as you're reviewing in, maybe you try this at home. Take your hands, okay, put them together, and notice how that feels. Your hands interlocked like that. Notice how that feels. And then open up your hands and now put them back together, but so that the other thumb is on top and the other, so it's a little different. And now notice how that feels. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. But notice you didn't die. The world is not falling apart. You're just a little outside your comfort zone. It's just a little different. And this, as you notice that, so you're kind of noticing more things about your hands and your body right now. This is where we want to live more and more in our lives. This is where in meetings and things, we want to just tweak things and do it a little differently. That's the zone of proximal development. That is sustainable. I can make that kind of small move many times a day. Every hour I can do something a little different. Every meeting I can ask a little question that I wouldn't have asked before. And that really has this skill being built into my system as something that will become a natural behavior for me. Okay? So that's something you can work on. I'm seeing that, yes, you see, I guess to worry about that my questions might sound basic or unnecessary. Good noticing, right? Because you are already putting yourself down for your questions, thinking, that's a stupid question. Well, there might be such things as stupid questions, but if you actually have a question, if there's really something that you don't understand that's being talked about in a meeting, I can pretty much guarantee that there are other people in that meeting who have the same question and are also too scared to ask it. We all think differently. We all have different learning styles. And so what makes sense in one way to somebody isn't going to make sense to everybody else. We are visual learners. We learn by speaking. So even that one of just you asking the question, sometimes you'll find that when you ask a question, it starts coming together for you because you're verbalizing it. So you're thinking out loud and you're using the group space to do that. And it helps you learn whatever you're talking about on a deeper level. So if you ask a question and that helps you understand it better, then it is worth it for the team. It is worth the time, the little bit of time it took you to ask that question. Okay, good to hear that's helpful. Yeah. And also think of it like this. You're on the team. You already belong. You already exist there. And you matter. You're part of that system. And if you don't understand something, you not understanding something impacts that entire system. So it's actually on you. It's your responsibility to ask that question so that you can be in as good of shape as you can be. That's going to benefit the team. I mean, think about, there's all kinds of stuff about the Navy SEALs and the people who actually make it as a SEAL. It's not the strongest, not the smartest. It's people who are willing to be with discomfort and who will not let anybody fall behind. Okay? So there's all kinds of stories about this. I forget the last book I read on it. It might come to mind. But the key thing is not strength, is not intelligence. The key thing is a willingness, the decision to lean into the discomfort and to ask the questions and to speak up and to say, hey, I need help here. Help me understand this. Because a team will not make it if one person doesn't let them know what they need. Okay? So it's kind of counterintuitive to be a badass Navy SEAL. You actually have to be vulnerable. You have to know where you break down, and you have to be willing to communicate how you think you might fail. So I'm taking this to kind of an extreme level here, but I want to drive this point home. You asking questions in a meeting is an important thing for you to do for your development. And I think you'll be surprised. I think you'll find that people really appreciate you asking the questions you ask. Okay, great. This is fantastic. Thank you for letting me know that that's on track and that that's been helpful for you. I look forward to hearing that. I want you to picture a meeting that you've got coming up and picture a question that you can ask there and write it down. Put it on a sticky note so that you remember, I'm going to ask a question in this meeting. Okay? Oh my goodness. See, look at this. I love how much we can dig into on any simple thing, any interaction that happens in life. There's so much in that moment. And I'm looking at the clock and we're already almost at 12:45 here Central Time. So I'm with you for another few minutes here. If you want to set up a one-to-one with me, I know being here live streaming is vulnerable. You can always set up a one-to-one with me. I've got 15 to 20 minutes I'll spend with you. And oftentimes just some of the observations I make, and I can give you some encouragement and help you see, oh yeah, I'm on the right path. Got it. I know what I'm doing here. Great. And sometimes we look at what your project is in your career, and it's going to be a bigger conversation, and we can talk about whether a coaching relationship would be a good fit for you. So go ahead and set up a time with me. I love this. I love working with people. This is why I do this. I have a background as a musician and a singer, and I've come to realize my favorite times were working with my band as we're getting creative about what we can do. So in coaching and in someone's life, in your life, we get in there and we really look at like what you've got, what are the elements that you're working with in your life, and what are the things that you want? What are the things that you want to create? And then we do that together. We identify the ways that you can be learning and growing and new behaviors that you can be developing so that you're becoming the person that you want, that you're creating the life that you want. I love doing this stuff. So set up a time with me. I look forward to engaging with you in that way. Now, as we're coming up to the end of this hour, I want to invite anybody, if you've got anything on your heart, any questions that you have about your career, whether it's something logistical, whether it's something with resumes and interviewing, or whether it's being in meetings, whether it's your relationship with your team or your relationship with your boss, or even if it's what am I really doing? I've been working for a while and I don't have the sense of purpose that I really kind of ache to have. Any question career related is welcome. Feel free to jump in here directly on Zoom and come off mute and ask me your question, or type into the comment section or type into the chat and I will dig in with you. So feel free to ask any question career related. Go for it. So and you can interrupt me at any time. So I'll share a little bit more, because we've had some juicy stuff here about how to develop in your career. We had a question about that, and that it's about relationships. So that was very good. You said, "Oh yeah, I can see that I could focus more on building relationships instead of just the technical side of things." That's absolutely critical. You can be super, super technical. You could be an expert in what you do, but if you're not developing relationships, no one's going to be able to help you make other connections. It is absolutely political. You know, people say, "Oh, I don't like the politics in my company." Well, it's what it is. Politics is means people. That's relationships. So, you know, politics gets a bad rap in a lot of ways, as we live in a country where we're allowed to talk about how much we don't like politicians, and how, you know, we can make fun of the people who are in leadership positions and say they're stupid and all kinds of things. So we live in a country where we even get to do that, and we get to criticize politics in a way that is actually unique. And so to understand that, you know what, just because I don't like something, or because I have a lot of feelings about politics and about developing relationships, and I'm uncomfortable with that stuff, well, that doesn't mean that there's anything actually wrong with it. And that might be an indicator for me that I can increase my emotional intelligence so that I can be better at interacting with people, because that's really going to be the thing that helps me advance in my career. And by the way, deathbed regrets, a common deathbed regret is that people didn't really know how I felt. I wish people really had known me more. I wish that I had really shared how I felt about stuff. That is a common thing. And you need relationships to be able to do that. So we live in a strange, you know, any time's a strange time, but we live in a time where there is a lot of isolation. We had COVID happen. Many of us work from home. And we, in this nation, we built this, a lot of us coming over when we were young kids, relatively, and striking out on our own, and that continues to be a thing. So there is an element of aloneness that's just kind of baked in to the culture that has gone on for a long time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But to look at, okay, what are the ways that I can make meaningful connections? What are the ways that I can lean in and deepen my emotional intelligence so that I can have more social connections? Okay, emotional intelligence, the awareness of what's going on inside me, will help me relate to other people more and be more socially intelligent. And that is absolutely necessary to advance into leadership positions. So I hope that's a helpful rant there from me. There's a few things that you can do. If you're joining in and you want to learn more about personality styles, it's a wonderful social intelligence tool. You can take an assessment that I have. There's no cost to it. All my clients use it when starting with me. So check it out. It's Connect and Thrive. So it's an assessment. You learn about yourself, your personality style, and then there's a quick video you watch. That the intention of it is to help you identify other personality styles and know how to engage with other personality styles. So it's kind of like quickly learning another style's language so that you're better at shifting and communicating to them in a way that they're going to hear you. It's an incredibly common thing. I have one of my mentors is very high up in a bank, and I asked him, I was like, what do you really do at work? And he was like, I translate. And he doesn't mean from Spanish to English or Chinese to English. He means from different personality styles and from different departments. He's like, most of what happens is people think they understand what the job is and they'll start working on it when really they don't understand. And so I just go back and forth between the teams and I help make sure that silos aren't happening. So pretty much what I do is I'm really good at understanding people, and I help them understand themselves, and I help them understand each other. So think about yourself that way. The other cool thing about this is it's a skill that you can learn. You don't have to. Emotional intelligence is not just something you're born with. Like, it's not like in the same way that if you're born with a high IQ and you're just natural, you got a fast computer. Emotional intelligence is different. This is actually something that you can build. And you will be uncomfortable doing it. I tell all clients that part of the price you pay is that you will be uncomfortable. But it is something that you can develop. And if you just increase your emotional intelligence a few degrees, you think about the impact that has through the rest of your life. It's a big deal. So take a look at that course, the Connect and Thrive, the quick personality assessment and a video, and reminder that you can set up a time to meet with me one-to-one. I love engaging with you in that manner and helping you become who you can become. So personality assessments, that can help you establish more relationships. And then you heard me talking about fear and anxiety as a key thing. A lot of people reach out saying, oh, I want to have more confidence. You don't really get confidence until you achieve the thing you want to achieve. So if you are trying to put confidence first and say, oh, I have to be confident before I can do this thing that I've never done before, you're never going to get there. You got to take the risk. So it's actually about letting yourself have the anxiety, letting yourself be with the discomfort, practicing, and then you'll build the confidence. And so sometimes people do that in coaching sessions with me as well, where we'll go through, like if someone's preparing for public speaking, we will run through it together so that they are sharing what they're planning to say at the event. They're sharing their PowerPoint and things with me, and we're going through that together. And then I help them be with the discomfort and be with the anxiety as they're imagining talking to a crowd, because it's actually the anxiety that helps you connect with the people to say, oh, that person looks concerned. I wonder what's going on for them. And oh, okay, wow, they look really engaged. Good. It looks like what I'm saying is impacting them. So if I'm numb to my anxiety, I don't get any feedback. I can't tell how I'm doing with the people I'm talking to. I could be super confident and saying, oh, I'm saying all the right stuff. But if I'm not making contact with the people in the room, it doesn't matter. So part of me is like, screw confidence. But it's nice as you practice stuff, you will get more of a sense of, oh, I'm confident, and you'll get that sense. But it doesn't come first. So just wanted to share that piece about how to use anxiety. And if any of you who are listening are in Chicago or want to come to Chicago, a way that I really play around with fear and anxiety is by going into the cold ass lake. So I go into the lake almost every day as just part of my practice of being with discomfort, being with fear. And because I bring that into my coaching sessions of being with the discomfort of my client who's working on a challenging thing and just allowing that space to be. So if you're anywhere in Chicago or you want to play around with this, come check it out. I do this on the weekends. I go into the ice water. And if you just like that stuff because you think it's fun and interesting, follow me on Instagram. I'm Chicago Iceberg. And maybe that will be inspiring to you as well. So good being with you all. Thank you for the questions. Your questions are the things that help fuel this engagement here. I will see y'all next week. I will see you here on Career Lab Wednesday. Until then,